Welcome to the Pain-Free Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Dana Jones. I am a certified personal trainer, and I'm here to help you achieve your fitness goals without pain. In each episode, I'll share tips and strategies that will help you stay safe and pain-free while you're working out. I'll also interview experts in the field of fitness and pain management. So if you're ready to learn how to stay active and pain-free, then subscribe to the Pain-Free Athlete Podcast today. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Pain-Free Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Dana Jones. Today, I'm excited to welcome Lara Heimann. Lara is a physical therapist, a movement expert, and founder of LYT Yoga, the LYT Yoga Method, a unique approach that blends functional movement, smart alignment to help people move better and live pain-free. With over 25 years of experience and a global community of students, Lara is passionate about empowering others to find freedom and resilience through intelligent movement. She is also the host of the Redefining Movement podcast and an advocate for holistic health and conscious living. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Dana.
So you do a lot.
Yes.
So what drove you to create LYT Yoga, and why are you worried about how people move? And
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I'm sure so many people can relate when they have a profession or a passion that are kind of are one and the same. And then within that, just like I had a lot of curiosity. I had interest in pushing the needle, like how can I be a better physical therapist? How can I explain things, more clearly? How can I make or help people feel empowered to understand their body? And so it was kind of just like I think a lot of entrepreneurs, seeing where there were big gaps. There were big gaps in yoga, for instance. I was teaching yoga, and there was a lot of people who were teaching the physical aspect of yoga and know very little about the body. And that's not great for them. It's not great for their students. It's not very empowering yes, if you're super flexible and nothing really hurts and you come in and you can perform, mimic everything, then you're not going to have any issues. But it's not very welcoming and inclusive to people who have different histories, different ages, and different considerations. So that was my first one. I was like, there is definitely a gap here. And some of it, and what I really realized is teachers, there's a monopoly on yoga teachers accreditation. There's one company, so they were churning out the yoga teacher training schools, which means that there's many schools and lots of people becoming yoga teachers, and the quality control did not match the what was necessary. And I think that happens probably a lot when you have a monopoly. Now they have since gotten better, but in those years between 2000 and 2015, there was just a lot of people who were paying quite a bit of money to become yoga teachers, and then left kind of to their own devices so they could. And that's when I thought, I need to help teachers who love yoga and give them the tools that you don't have to be a physical therapist to understand the body. So that was one problem I was solving. And when I created the teacher training, I then opened up a studio, and then everything kind of would snowball. And there's like, oh, this is what else is needed. I'm passionate about people moving well because ironically, we are not taught how to move, right? We figured it out, which was awesome. But the problem is we didn't stay in that same growth mindset when we were developing as from out of the womb to being bipedal to playing on the playground, all of that. That was exploration. That exploration also grew our brain. It also grew the connections between the brain and body. But then you take those little persons and put them in a chair for 6 hours a day, and their movement experience is limited. And then they're doing technology, blah, blah, blah. And then they go into the workforce. It's just like everything. So we develop imbalances. Those imbalances may never lead to any kind of discomfort or pain, but at the very least, they are changing the efficiency, how we hold on to our energy. We are bodies of energy, and the way we stand, sit, move, breathe, all of that has an impact on it. And so, but we're not taught any of this. So I thought, well, When we talk about posture, when we talk about core, when we talk about breathing, those are all interchangeable words in a way. They're
Mhm.
intertwined by helping someone understand why good posture. I'm not talking about perfect, but I'm talking about optimal posture is important for the biomechanics of their joints, for the energy exchange through those joints, for the breathing and the space for the ribs, the diaphragm, all the apparatus we have for breathing. And then the core musculature, which is really everything inside this container of the pelvis and ribs. It's not rocket science. It's fun to teach people kind of simple concepts that really play out, and it helps people pay attention and connect and befriend their bodies as opposed to not really understanding. And then something happens and it becomes this, I have a bad knee, I have a bad back, I can't do this. But, a lot of this languaging around the relationship of the body is it's not friendly. And so, in getting to understand your body more, you'll hopefully befriend it and be able to take care of it. And that's very powerful instead of waiting until you have ache pain and feel like you have to go somewhere for an answer to that. So that's a very long answer, but I'm passionate about it because we aren't taught this stuff and I don't need to gatekeep it as a PT. I can simplify it and make it really digestible. And that's what we do with the LYT yoga method.
It's interesting because as you were talking, I was thinking about how older women become stooped.
Hmm.
And now I'm watching teenagers who have those postures. And is that something that you're seeing in your practice? Is especially that postural issue of people kind of hunched forward, elongated neck, whatever?
Yeah. I was talking about it like 10 years ago, saying this thing is not good. Text neck. Like, why are we looking at our phones like this all the time? And now it is becoming, they are starting to see, like, what are the impacts of that? Well, it's happening at younger and younger ages because, I think technology can be blamed. I don't know how else, right? Like it's so positionally directing our focus, or the way we're sitting, the way we're standing. I'm always curious, like when I'm waiting in an airport or in the grocery, where people are typically entertaining themselves, right? Like, wait, there's 20 minutes, I've got to sit here, let me look at my phone. And the issue with that is you just look around and what you're seeing is this position, which is not great. The reason it's not great is your skull slides forward of the first cervical, and then all these little muscles in the back called your suboccipitals, which are really not there to hold the weight of your head up in the way we're making it. They get very frustrated. So it just kind of leads into this cycle. And then you have neck stuff, and then you're like, oh, I got to stretch. But really, you just have to first reposition and then work on, well, what does that mean to hold that? You can look at your phone, maybe, but put it at your eye level. That's going to feel weird, but hey, who cares? Whatever
Right.
it is, just we have to figure out ways that we're just improving our alignment, because that alignment is like a currency. So, it's like currency in the bank. You are gonna want the most interest, and the interest of paying attention to your alignment is gonna benefit you today, but it's also gonna benefit you in many years to come. When you talk about the older women, it can happen at any age. There's gonna be I was asked this question in a magazine article and just this morning, and they said, is it more likely when women after pregnancy are stooped over and rounded and having that forward head? And I said, maybe, but honestly, the thing that's going to determine that is, what is that person? What is it? What are their postural habits? Yeah, they have more weight because of breast tissue and but I didn't have that. So it's not going to be everybody. It's going to be,
Yes.
what are they doing? And these times in their lives can make it, and exacerbate it, but it's really the postural and movement habits that speak
Well,
out.
and it's reversible. And that's the big thing. I remember I had a client who came in and pretty tall guy, but he didn't look at his height because of the fact that he was so hunched, and one of his jobs was taking notes. And so he would take notes and he would be in this very wonky position. And it took probably a good year It's definitely not, you create these habits over a long period of time, and
Mhm.
so they don't get reversed and, "Oh, I just started working out, so 3 months later, my posture's fantastic." It depends on you, but most of the time, if this has been a habit for a long period of time, it's gonna take a while to retrain your muscles into stacking properly. Your breath gets affected. There's all kinds of things that get affected through, I wanna say laziness, but maybe it's just lack of
Well, it's
connection.
our it's really wired, this path
Mhm.
of least resistance. We have this very primitive kind of wiring to conserve energy. That was really important thousands of years ago. We need to produce more energy. We're not, working all day or walking all day or physically active all day. So that whole conservation of energy does not really apply. And so yeah, it's not laziness, but it is this you're yielding to a little bit of what our natural kind of wiring is. And we just have to realize that is something we need to override.
Yes, for sure. So you create the lip method and I believe you were talking about the idea of aligning, refining, and then feeling divine. So if I'm a new client, go ahead and explain the process to me. If I come into your studio, or how do
Yes.
you reach
Yeah.
your clients?
So I always say that, the my goal in creating this method is to provide education and with that education give you a challenge so that you actually are excited about meeting a challenge and realize that's the only place growth happens. And so we lay down good mechanics. So like why do we want good mechanics? Well, because we're setting our muscles, our tissues, our breath, our everything up for more success, meaning participation, balance, harmony. And then we talk about like the brain body connection, right? So we have those, like what you're saying, the pathways that we've taken. It's like the habit. You can drive to go, the grocery store and barely remember what happened along the way because it's right, it's so ingrained. So we have those ingrained pathways. So we create other ones to just override the less optimal ones is harder. So I do a lot of things of introducing concepts. So for instance, like if you were to come to class, I would teach you about hip hinging. How do you hinge at your hips with a neutral spine? Why do we want that to happen? I teach that in every class. So if people have been taking with me for 20 years or, two times, they're still going to hear that. And that's because you need to hear it a lot. I've had people who've taken from me for 5 years and they'll take a class and all of a sudden be like, oh my gosh, I really finally get what you're saying. Even though they've heard it. So they have to hear it, they have to implement it, they have to sense it, and then they have to integrate it in their own what's called neuromuscular coordination. So everybody is trained by me, and it's these principles of like, how do we reset our posture and our breath and our core? We do that at the very beginning by getting on the ground and doing some developmental work that is very much similar to what we did in those developmental years, because that was crucial for getting those core muscles online. They're not offline. When they're offline, that's when injury can happen. Almost always, if there's an injury and overuse, somebody needs more core. More core is not just abdominals, as you know. It's the everything that's supporting your center of mass, your pelvis, and then your rib cage and shoulder. Yeah. Yeah. So and it's fabulous when you get that feeling of like holding yourself in space with good stability. We can move in a variety of planes, and that's what we do as well. Yoga, typical yoga, a lot is kind of sagittal plane and a little bit more. We do a lot of movement around the mat and different planes. And I tell people if they're new, that can be confusing. Confusion is good. That's when your brain pays attention.
Yes.
You don't want to be overly confused because then you get frustrated and zone out. But confusion, challenge, these are all words that we need. This is great for our brain and our body. It's great for aging. It's great for longevity. And it is the thing that will grow us in all the ways we want.
Is there a limit, an age limit in terms of?
No, 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 no. I have, We have people in their teenage years all the way to early 80s and being able, and we have some really specific programs on there. The Start Here series is one, for example, I made with another physical therapist. And we were like, we want an 80-year-old grandmother to be able to come and take this class. And there are classes that are about specifically all the joints, mobility, stability of the shoulder. And then in practice, we have a little 15-minute practice. And within all those, you can do it on the ground, you can do it at the wall, you can do it in a chair. So kind of meeting people where they're at. And then they can progress from that Start Here series to some of the other classes. So there's a lot on there. But again, that messaging and that the blueprint is the same. And then you can just, we have strength classes on there. We have fascia related classes, stress relief, postnatal, everything you can pretty much imagine. Athletic, of course.
I love that. So when you're dealing with somebody who comes in that may have had an injury or possibly is a chronic pain sufferer, some of what you're talking about is really retraining that brain with that neuroplasticity. So how do you deal with somebody who would say, come in and say, my back has been killing me for years and I've been trying so many different things. Somebody recommended you, but I'm absolutely terrified.
This happens all the time.
Well, we are leading the world in back injury
Yeah,
or,
especially with low
back
back
pain.
pain. So one of the first things I will tell them almost 100% is that you're going to be okay. That what you're feeling, your perception is all very real, but we need to reframe that and understand that it is your body's only way of communicating to please change something, change what was going on, change positions you're in, change the strain, whatever it is. But it's not as in stop. It doesn't mean like pain does not mean you should stop. Pain means you should pay attention and change what is creating that root cause. Now, sometimes pain is there and there's no tissue damage. It's just an old pattern of the brain and it's been hyper vigilant and really and very reactive. And that's when we say, just like we have really reactive parents, who will like freak out at the littlest thing. And then we have the relaxed parents who are like, yeah, they're going to be fine. They know how to swim, whatever it is. We have to change that reactivity. It's not wrong. There was some reason, but it isn't necessary anymore. And the way you do that is you have to experiment. You have to move. You have to feel that there's some discomfort and play with that discomfort and also realize that you're safe. You have to create this safety in the nervous system. The way you do that is you set the nervous system up. I mean, the nervous system is impacted by your posture. We know that, in that forward head, this is not a posture of relaxation. So it's like we have to tune into all of those things. But the most important thing I say is you will be okay because we're going to work with your body. You're going to befriend it. We have to change some of the communication that's happening, but it's going to be good. Your body is resilient. That's what and that right there often is that's not going to heal them, but that is such like it just brings people to the state where they're ready to learn because pain creates fear.
For sure.
You
And
know?
if I had you, how many years ago, that would have been so nice. Just because of the fact that, a lot of times I find, especially when you're suffering from chronic pain, a lot of practitioners will say, "Oh, I got you. Like, we're going to get rid of this."
Mhm.
And for me, that's the ultimate bullshit detector
Yeah.
because,
You
you
might
know,
not ever
you're
fully get rid of it. And that's the thing. And in a way, I'm not saying that's good, but that's like your body is constantly telling you the job isn't done. You're still alive. You still are moving. You still need your back needs that support. This is a lifelong, it's like hygiene. It's lifelong every day practice to ensure that you're more balanced. And so the pain might appear, disappear, and it's your body's only way to communicate.
Yeah. And without pain. And that's the thing. I always get teased about the title of my podcast because I say pain free athlete. And the reality is that we're never pain free because if we were, then we wouldn't be alive. The people that have that condition often don't make it past the age of 25. But I think what I was shooting for is that chronic pain
Mhm.
because it does limit your body, it limits your belief system. And that's the thing. I think a lot of people feel that people who are chronic pain sufferers are just focused on the injury or the perceived injury. And the reality is that there's so many other areas of our lives that are affected by it, that that's just one aspect of it. And so finding ways to safely move and to constantly send our body those messages of affirmation or just support is something that doesn't often happen, because our people who suffer from chronic pain are typically type A people.
Mhm.
And they're, as you said, very hypervigilant just normally. And then when you get pain, you become hypervigilant about the pain. And then your body's like, oh, I got this. Like, let me show you how I could really get hypervigilant. So it kind of creates this cycle of just being nuts. And I find, especially with any type of yoga, there is, well, except for that power yoga kind of craziness, most of the time there is that, like I could relax for a moment.
Right.
But a lot of times it's not, because there's also difficulty in going to classes,
Yeah.
because there is body comparisons, there's movement comparisons, there's physical, flexibility comparisons. And so people do become intimidated, shall we say.
You definitely have to you have to practice with lit. And even when I had the in-person studio, one thing I was most proud of is it was so inclusive, and there was never this like, oh, this person can do this and like we everybody uses blocks. Blocks are the most amazing thing. They're going to help you align and activate and make it. And I'm always like giggling when my teachers who teach at different studios say, how do you get people to use blocks? I say, well, you tell everybody to grab blocks. I mean, it's really the only reason they have that whole perception of, oh, blocks are for beginners is because teachers say, well, if you need to have a block under here, and I, you have to, so it's the language. It's all like, it's like, most important thing, hold neutral spine. Bend your knee, bend it even more. Put a hand, put yourself the hands on blocks to keep that neutral spine. So it's all these things because we're going for this goal. It's not to touch your toes. It's not to show us how flexible you are. It is to maintain the alignment of your spine for many reasons, but it's teaching people good biomechanics. So yeah, and you have to go to a class. If I, years ago, I would have brought you, and you would, again, starting on the ground is really great because you have more support for your center of mass. So you start to get those muscles, the core muscles, the postural muscles to come online in the way we need them to, but we still have a lot of support from the ground. And then we move off that. So you're priming your brain and your body to move more efficiently. And more efficiently is not necessarily sexy, but boy, that means less strain on one area because some other area isn't doing its job.
Which is important. I remember my chiropractor used to say the two things that kept her in business was yoga and CrossFit.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and so all of these names of whatever it is we do are just representations of people teaching those things, and so what it comes down to is in a movement practice, learn from somebody who understands the body, bar none. And that's in a CrossFit practice, that's at the gym, that's at yoga, it's whatever you do, Pilates, like someone who is giving you the information and you can actually understand what they're talking about, because otherwise you're mimicking poses in the way your body is familiar with doing, and that is not setting you up for a long-term sustainability and energy.
Right. And I know there's a studio around here, I think it's in San Francisco, that works with runners, and they change runners' gait.
Mm,
And I don't know what, I just saw a client go through it, and I did not see it happen well, because she developed a knee problem and ankle problem and all that, because they're saying, well, you have to run this way.
mhm.
And sometimes people are, there are practitioners out there that are possibly irresponsible and are showing you to move in a manner in which your body's not ready to move in.
It's a confusing world. I feel for consumers because you like, look at this, you try this out, and sometimes just trying something out can lead to something not so great, or it can lead to a great discovery. And that's where we do as consumers have to do our due diligence and think like, you don't have to have documented research on something, but like, is this somebody who's credible? Do they have they're enriched in this. I don't think people have to be a physical therapist to teach well, but, a weekend seminar of personal training is not enough at all. And then, learn from other, like hear from other people how. So a lot of the people I get, you would have been referred probably by a friend. Somebody said, "Oh, I had back pain. This really helped me so much." So we have a lot of word of mouth, but that's a great way to find out about places and see what other people are enjoying. Not just from the not because it's trendy or they're gonna look a certain way, but really how it's helping them in their lives.
Well, that's how I got most of my clients was they were all, Zumba, injuries. They get hurt doing Zumba because they're doing Zumba 2, 3 times a day, 5 days a week, whatever it was, and they'd have, hip issues, lower back problems, what and then they'd come to me, and we'd work it out, and they get strong, and then they go back to Zumba, wouldn't come back.
Well, yeah.
So, what is next for LYT Yoga? You sound like you are doing a bunch of different things and, sounds exciting. So, what's on your horizon?
We're just I have such a passion for aging well, I don't want to say redefining aging, but having just a better, and I think people are doing this now, but with longevity and whatnot, but just really having a more proactive approach to it, because aging does not have to be this, declined of vitality, but we do have to put in more work for it. So I'm really interested in that. I'm really interested in getting lit into some communities that that haven't had access to us, other languages. I mean, we have over 1,000 teachers worldwide. And so we're just kind of tapping a little bit with the English as a primary language. There's other languages. So we'd like to get into that and perhaps get into some other areas and network with or combine with other people who are in the same space as us, especially with like menopause and longevity. But yeah, just always looking for ways to get more people just feeling at home in their body.
Which is amazing thing.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Because of all the things that we talked about, people are pretty
Really.
disconnected from their bodies,
And if like this is with you all the time from birth to death, the longest relationship. And number one, it shouldn't be a mystery that you feel like you have to, again, get all the answers from an outside source. It shouldn't feel like it's an enemy. This is our body is really should be our best friend. And so what's the best way to take care of that best friend? And again, it's not usually sitting on the couch, unfortunately. Do that at sometimes, but you gotta move. Like this body, the way it's engineered, made to move frequently. You don't have to move a ton, for long periods of time, but it's got to be a priority. And making yourself a priority is it's the most selfless thing you can do, is putting yourself first. And that is the thing I think with a lot of women, conditioned to take care of this. And if you have time, do something else. It's like, no, you take care of you first. So that's what I'm really interested in continuing to empower women in particular.
that's great. So, you have something for our listeners?
Yeah, so we have an online, it's called the Lit Daily platform. It's really set up to be very user friendly. There's a lot on there, but you can toggle what kind of class you are not a beginner, intermediate, or advanced. That's just the type of class you would take. You can toggle on that, the amount of time, any kind of specific body area, any kind of specific, there's all kinds of themes and whatnot. And then we also have a weekly schedule that you could just follow. That platform, we're offering your listeners 5 weeks of it for $5, which is like a
Wow.
really big deal. That's a great savings, but it's also gonna give you time to try it out. Like, sometimes we sign up for something and then all of a sudden there's 5 days left. Oh, try it out. Do a class, do 2 classes a week, maybe do 4 a week. Just launch into it slowly. email me with any questions. I love engaging with people who try stuff up. So you can just get me at lara@lityoga.com. You can find me on Instagram, lara.heimann. You can message me there. But I really just want people to experience how it feels when you understand your body more, and what kind of empowerment that can parlay into all areas of your life.
Fantastic. Well, you kinda did my little end by giving all your socials. We'll also put things in the show notes so that you all have access to those links. But Laura, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it. And,
Thank you, Dana. It was wonderful to talk to you.
you too.